chopped up, and my apologies to Phil, who's next to me. He's going to have to put up with my Kleenex on the desk here. Let's go ahead and begin by going around to the different campuses, do a sound check. So we'll start with the downtown Phoenix campus. President Yuri Glover, can you hear us?
They want you guys to
Yes.
do a sound check.
Hi, can you hear us?
Hello, this is downtown campus. Can you hear me?
All right. Yes, it's passable. Thank you. Let's move on down to the Polytechnic campus. President Kaiselka.
I'm from Polytechnic. Hopefully you can hear us.
Wonderful. Yes, you're coming in loud and clear. Here at the Tempe campus, President Hagelin.
I believe we are here, yes.
I can hear you wonderfully. Thank you, President Hagelin. Finally, the West Campus, President Burleson.
I like the sound of that. Thank you, Eduardo.
Thank you so much, Mary. Welcome to our 7th out of 8 University Senate meetings. This is almost the end of our calendar. Let us then turn the time over to Maria, my old friend Maria Cordero. Maria, for the quorum calculation question.
Good afternoon, everyone. So let's go ahead and take quorum. This is Senate meeting number 7. Please select the campus which you represent. This is for voting members only. Okay, closing the poll. Let's go ahead and take a second poll to make sure that that is accurate. So this is asking you how you are joining today's meeting: in person at my campus, in person, not my campus, or via Zoom. Closing the poll. We have quorum.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Maria. Let us then move on to action on the minutes. The minutes for our February 28, 2022 Senate meeting have been distributed. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? All right, hearing none, the minutes are approved as distributed. Maria, there's a, I don't know if you can see that, but maybe you want to move that off the screen. Thank you so much. Let's move on then to the UAC Chair's report. And I will begin my report this month by highlighting our Senator Spotlight, who is Professor Stephanie Downey. She's a lecturer in English for the College of Integrative Sciences and Arts, and she is in the Language and Cultures unit. She's been at ASU for 15 years. And her studies have included art and architectural history, world religions and cultures, creative writing, and composition and rhetoric. And we especially recognize her for the work that she's been able to do to help transform the first-year experience into an opportunity for students to apply new skills in personally meaningful ways. Congratulations, Senator Downey. So this past week, I had the opportunity to attend a lecture by Professor Arthur Levine. He gave this year's John J. Rhodes Lecture, and he's a scholar in higher education at NYU. He's a senior fellow and president emeritus of the Woodrow Wilson National Fellowship Foundation and president emeritus of the Columbia University's Teachers College. He recently co-published The Great Upheaval: Education's Past, Present, and Uncertain Future. And you may have seen his name as a frequent contributor to the Chronicle of Higher Education. So his accolades are many, and it's just worth noting a few. He has 26 honorary degrees and fellowships from the Carnegie, Rockefeller, Guggenheim, and Fulbright Foundations. Now, I list this because there are many of our colleagues who believe that what he has to say is worth listening to, and I wanted to share just a few of his observations with you today. So when he addressed us last week, he began by reviewing the major industries that defined much of the 19th and 20th centuries. From the telegraph, newspapers and railroads to the film studio, musical industry, the music industry, and also to shopping malls. In each case, and no matter the century, these industries made similar mistakes. They failed to recognize the new challenges coming at them, and consequently, they misunderstood their own businesses. As a consequence, these industries continually made short-term adaptations along the way that fell far short of the generational challenges that were in front of them. Like they were doing simple things like cutting costs rather than innovating and investing in the future. Now, after that review of these industries, he then turned his attention to higher education and argued that we're at a similar moment of generational change. Our American university system largely grew out of the Industrial Revolution, but that revolution has long been over, and we're in the midst of rapid technological and cultural changes and challenges. Already, knowledge providers such as Masterclass, edX, Coursera, FutureLearn, and Udacity are at our doorsteps. Do we keep doing as we've always done, safely ensconced behind the ivy-colored walls of academia, or do we adapt and change and claim our ground in this new arena? That's the challenge before us as academics in general and as faculty members at Arizona State University. The ground we stand on is changing. We either adapt, innovate, and move to the front of that change, or we go the way of the afternoon newspaper. I'm grateful for the collaborative work of university leaders such as Provost Gonzalez and Vice Provost Clark, and I also want to mention Vice Provost Jones, who worry about these things far more than I do. We will have the opportunity in just a moment to hear from Sally Morton, who's the Executive Vice President of ASU Knowledge Enterprise, about the new opportunities that we have before us to continue to lead and innovate in this educational space, this new educational space. Now, as we look to the future and seek to embrace these new challenges, I pray that we will always remember one simple thing, is that we need to take care of each other. We need to take care of our colleagues. We need to take care of our staff. We need to take care of our students. And what brings us to mind was another event that happened a few weeks ago, which I've shared with various members of the University Academic Council. Just a few weeks ago, my wife happened to be at the Burton Barr Library, and she noticed a young woman who appeared to be in distress. And so she went over to see if she could be of any help. It turned out that this young woman had been enrolled in one of our educational programs at ASU, one of our graduate programs. I'm sorry, I said education program. I don't know what major she was in, but she was enrolled in one of our graduate programs. She lost her job due to COVID, and as a consequence, has been living in her car. I am sad to say, I don't know who this young woman was. I don't know what her program was. But I share this story with you with a simple plea and a simple request of all of my colleagues here. If there is a graduate student or an undergraduate student who has dropped out of your classes or dropped out of your programs, I ask that you take a moment to try and connect with them. I don't pretend for a moment that we'll be able to find who this young woman was, and there will be many students that we won't be able to find, but perhaps you may be able to make a difference in connecting with one of our students who is in need of the help that we can offer as ASU. And that you might be the means by offering, at least getting them in connection with our services that we provide as well. And so to that end, I've also invited Aaron Krosnow, Associate Vice Provost of ASU Health Services and ASU Counseling Services, to share with us some of his views and observations and comments as well that he's gleaned along the way about what students are facing now in general, now in this particular time of the semester, and the ways that we can help them. So with that, that concludes my report for today. If you will note, if you're following along in our agenda, we have item number 5, a report from the university president. Again, I remind you that that's a standing agenda item. We don't expect President Crow here, but for our last Senate meeting, which will take place in April, we do expect President Crow to join us at that meeting. So we have that to look forward to. Now it's my pleasure to invite Provost Nancy Gonzalez to the podium for her report.
Thank you, Eduardo. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I need that a little lower. There we go. Okay. You have a full agenda of items that have been coming up in prior meetings today, which I'm excited to see that Sally Morton has been invited to talk with you about the work on the STCs that it has been evolving rapidly at ASU, and as well as Aaron Krasnow to talk with you about some of the work we do to support our students. So I'm going to keep my comments short to leave time for those presentations and good discussion, hopefully. I do want to just say a couple of things. First of all, it wouldn't be a University Senate meeting if we didn't mention COVID at least once. So we're really at steady state and things are looking quite good. You know, when we often tell you that we monitor numbers on a daily basis. It's actually true, including over the weekend. And our numbers of faculty staff that are currently positive are at 1, and our numbers of students are at 30. And I know the big fear was that after spring break, we were going to see an explosion of numbers, and that hasn't been the case. So we are on course to finish up a healthy semester with in-person graduation. And again, thanks to everybody who has been navigating these transitions and helped to make them so smooth. Looking ahead, we're also seeing very healthy admissions for fall. Our students are excited about what we're doing, and unlike many universities, we're seeing year-over-year increases at all levels of the funnel. And at this stage of admissions, we are talking about funnels. We're looking at who's applied, who's submitted deposits, who's registered, et cetera. And we're up in terms of people who've already registered, and our admissions applications are up by a surprising 12% year over year. So we're looking quite healthy there. And that's true not only in the undergraduate, but also in the graduate category. So, you know, we're definitely doing something right, and we're excited about that. A couple of other things that have been happening recently. We've been moving along our efforts on the general education redesign at ASU, a massive effort that has moved now to the Arizona Board of Regents. We presented it at a meeting last week where we outlined our plan, our 3-pillar plan, which is to focus on knowledge areas, competencies, and assessment in a way that really represent what ASU is and what modern higher education should be providing for our students. We've had an incredibly robust level of participation from our faculty in that process. So I just want to say thanks to all the faculty who have volunteered, come to meetings, given input to get to this stage. And truthfully, the stage that we're at now is where the work now begins, which is because now we need to take this overall framework, which we hope will be officially approved by the Board of Regents next week, and make its way through Senate approval. And then we need to start designing the process to implement this with the goal of being able to implement a new general education framework by fall of 2024. A lot of work will go into that. And I hope the communities of highly engaged scholars will continue as we move through all of those efforts. So thank you for that. And then finally, I'll just, ask you to take a look at U.S. News and World Report. Rankings for graduate programs will be announced first thing tomorrow morning at 12 a.m. I think there's an embargo. And I don't think I violate the embargo to say that we've got 10 graduate programs in the top 5 and 38 in the top 20. And so but I can't say more. So I'll just leave it mystery there and let you take a look at those. But we're very proud of what our academic community has been able to accomplish. So I'm going to stop there. If there are any pressing questions that you want to ask me about, I'm happy to address those. We do have one more Senate meeting left, and there are some faculty items that have been brought to us that we will address at that meeting. But for now, I think I'll leave it to the other speakers unless you want to take questions.
Let's go around to the different campuses. No, it's not on. Okay, let's go ahead and go around to different campuses very quickly. South Phoenix campus, do you have any questions?
Try that
Okay.
again.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know.
There are no questions from the downtown campus.
All right, thank you so much. Polytechnic campus,
No questions, thank you.
thank you. Here at the Tempe campus, do we have any questions?
No questions from Tempe. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At the West campus, do you have any questions for Provost Gonzalez?
I have no questions.
All right, thank you. No, hold on. You're not done. Over to Maria on Zoom.
Yes.
Or do we have any questions?
We have Senator Wells. Senator Wells, please unmute.
Hi, Provost Gonzalez. My daughter is in ASU online taking the MSW program living in California, and she recently forwarded an email to me about a tuition increase, which reminded me of an ongoing issue that I have about how little of ASU online tuition money actually goes to the people who actually teach the classes. And I've noticed that the current tuition rate is somewhere around $550 a credit hour, but still it's only $83 to $100 that our units are receiving. My unit actually gets the $83, and the extra money is being taken by my higher part of my college. At when is the university going to address this inequity so that because I help pay my daughter's tuition, and it bothers me that I know so little of it is actually going to pay for her education.
So you're right, we did increase tuition to the online community by 2%. And in fact, our online degrees still relative to the broader market come in at a much lower rate. We've had a very strong commitment to keeping our tuition rates lower. That's true both for our immersion program, our on-ground program, as well as online. This year, we've actually proposed a 2.5% increase, which still makes us come in as the lowest price you can pay to get to get an undergraduate degree in the state of Arizona. So we've tried our best to keep those tuition rates lower. And in fact, it was interesting at the Board of Regents when we were presenting our tuition plan. And by the way, they're voting on our tuition plan right now in another room on campus. The regents were saying, we don't understand why you aren't charging more, given the way that, given how expensive things have gotten, et cetera. So I think the thing to realize is that the tuition money that we get from all of our programs pays for education in many, many ways. It's not necessarily directly to pay for the development of programs in the schools. For example, all the tenure track faculty, are on a salary that gets paid. And so all of ASU is benefiting and utilizing the tuition dollars in multiple ways. So it's hard to see, and it's not necessarily a one-to-one correspondence between a dollar brought in and exactly the program. It's much more complex than that.
I hope in the future we can have a clear answer, because I just would like to have the finances of ASU online much clearer for the broader community. I'm just discouraged by that. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
All right, thank you. Do we
Thank
have any
you.
other questions?
Two more
Okay.
questions. Senator Feeney, can you please unmute?
Yes, thank you, Provost, for the information. One thing I want to know more about LA campus. I've been trying to keep track of how the progress is there, and in terms of post-pandemic growth or demotes, or can you give us some information on how the effort in LA is going?
I'm not sure. Can you say the question one more time?
The rate that you mentioned on the improvement on ASU campus, that involves other bases that we have, like
Right.
the one in LA?
Yeah, so what we do is we are following guidance from the local communities. And so to the extent, and this current CDC guidelines, which are allowing, for example, us to not mask, are based on rates of infections, hospitalizations in the surrounding areas. And then the CDC is sort of documenting those rates across the country. And so if, for example, in our DC location or our Los Angeles location, or for that matter in Pima County, because we have some operations there, if those numbers were to increase to put those communities at higher risk, we would change our policy. So yes, we do look at those at the local level.
Okay, one more question from Senator John Dalmas.
John, you're muted.
John, can you unmute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I unmuted a moment ago and I think the system remuted me. I apologize. Provost Gonzalez, thanks for taking my question. Another fellow Senator, Donald Frost, and myself have had the pleasure over the last academic year in working with one of our Barrett students on their thesis. And they presented the defense of it this past Friday. And their thesis was on financial literacy of young adults. And in their study, they were looking at the amount of debt that young people carry or have. And it's not just student debt, but it's also credit card debt. And what became really apparent is there's a lack of education in the high school or at the high school level, as well as at the college or university level. And in the study that the student conducted, they found, I believe, if I remember correctly, and Don can chime in if he wants to correct me, that only one university in their study found that there was a requirement for completing the training or completing a class in financial education. I realize that we're rather late in bringing this to you with respect to looking at general education requirements, but I was hoping that perhaps we could send her presentation and maybe have an opportunity to present that to you and others to see if ASU and being innovative and looking at trying to address needs of our students and the community at large, how we could enhance the personal finance training that our graduates receive, regardless of what their major is, to make sure that they're prepared to do better in life than what it seems on the average young adults are doing right now. And it's affecting them profoundly. It's delaying marriage, it's delaying starting families. And so it's really a pretty profound issue. Thank you.
Absolutely. I would be very interested to see that and to understand what the findings are and the issues. And actually, I think we could even be sort of broad in our thinking about what we might do with that. I mean, for example, that could become a course that could somehow fit into our rubrics and general education framework. We actually have a chief wellness officer at ASU who's now trying to think about and redesign ways that we promote healthy living and be healthy citizens. And if you think about financial health, it could also be part of that. And I could also imagine we could insert these into, freshman 101, et cetera. So I think there are a variety of ways that we might think about how we get financial literacy more embedded into this population. I agree with you that young adults at this stage, this is really the time for them to develop that way of thinking for their future. So I'm very interested to see what you have to share.
Great. We'll do that. We'll make sure we get that information to you and look forward to having a chat about it. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Sorry, one final question. Senator Downey, you are the last question.
Hi, President Gonzalez. I just wanted to check in with you quickly to see whether or not ASU is still on track to provide healthcare coverage for trans faculty, staff, and dependents this summer.
We think we're on track. We have been working on this since this came up, I think last summer. And we committed to do it. And we are working through the legal issues. What ended up happening is that once we decided to do it, the other universities joined on board and wanted to also make it a broad Arizona provision. And so there are a bunch of legalities that have to get worked through to implement that in the plan. But the last time I checked, and I think you and I maybe interacted about it. The last time I checked, we thought July looked like about the right time. So,
okay.
Yes. But
thank you
I
very
will
much.
I will say that if anybody's finding themselves in a situation where this delay is becoming a problem, please just contact me and we can talk about that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for that question, Senator Downey. Thank you, Provost Gonzalez, for your report. I am now pleased to invite Dr. Aaron Krasno to the podium to share with us how we can help as faculty and whatever resources we have at ASU that can help our students.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Good to see those in the room. Haven't spoken to a room this large and empty since I taught Psych 101 before spring break in 2001. And so a little flashback. Good to see everybody on Zoom as well. I just want to start by thanking you, Eduardo, about the story that you told, because that's exactly the whole thrust of this conversation today, which is any strategy for mental health at ASU or any strategy for mental health in any community takes all of us. And it takes all of us to bridge the gap between self and others, to see something that we're concerned about and take it upon ourselves to do something. That something might be, as you heard, reaching out to the person in front of them. That something might be having a conversation with somebody else about what you saw to kind of either steel yourself or get ideas about what you might be able to do next. That something might be to engage the resources that exist in your community. And I'll talk about those in a second. Overall, before I get into the deck, and the deck is really just like bullet points of things that exist on campus. So I'll talk more broadly first. And then all of this is, of course, available to you in the record. The experience that many of you have probably had in your lives and your classrooms over the last 10 to 15 years is all true. Anxiety, depression, loneliness, sleep difficulties, substance use, suicidality, suicide attempts. All of those have been increasing in adolescents for the last 10 to 15 years. Different communities are affected at different rates, although in aggregate, things have been more challenging in America in the last 10 to 15 years in that regard. So if you in your classrooms or you in your communities have seen that, it bears out through our data. This is probably my 10th straight year of presenting exactly the same thing I'm saying. It's not getting better as a community. And that's a real, like for someone like me, and I know Provost as well, and others probably in the room or on Zoom who've devoted our lives to improving the communities. This is challenging times. There's this wave that we're trying to hold back. And undoubtedly, those of us who work in these fields are making a difference, but things are challenging. And as a result of those challenges, we keep looking at different ways that we need to approach things. Well, the first thing we need to do is, just as you heard, we need to be brave and approach people that we think might be of concern. The second thing we need to do is we need to invent new ways of doing business, which of course, I'm very proud to work at a university like this that's trying to invent new ways of doing business on everything, and mental health, not dissimilar in that regard. I've been at the university almost 20 years, and in that time, we've moved away from more traditional approaches to mental health at ASU that have existed for many decades, which is individual with a provider as the only choice or the key choice or the primary choice. We've determined that that is never scalable. We're never going to be able to hire enough people to provide counseling to every single person who needs it at ASU. I've done the math on it. Would use up a substantial portion of our operating budget and still probably wouldn't approach the issues. What we need to do is invest in prevention. What we need to do is invest in scalable strategies. And so in my time at ASU, what I've benefited from is watching how the university has approached education in that same way, and then trailed that and said, we need to approach mental health similarly. So what we've done is we've worked hard to ensure that all of you have access to information about prevention resources in the environment, things that you can add to your day-to-day work in the classroom, things that you, if you're at work in administration in a college or in any other unit, that you can embed in your day-to-day culture within your college, your program, ways that you can empower peers to help other peers, the ways that we can use technology, which I'll talk about in a little bit, to support students, and of course, provide direct resources to students such as counseling, treatment, support groups, and the like for students. And so over the last 2 decades, that's evolved to what I'm about to show you. Maybe because we're here, I'll also brag a little bit about how we're leading the country in a few of these things. I wish, as we've seen in many of President Crow's presentations, I should have put up logos from other universities that we're beating in this regard. So maybe for the next presentation I'll be like, we're better than Carnegie Mellon, we're better than Stanford, we're better than all these other places, which we are. So I'll jump to some details in the presentation for you. Let's attempt to do that. Okay. I'll put it right at Maria. Get hit her with a laser.
Hang on, Maria's working on it. Okay.
Yeah, all right. So this is all things I've said. There's something interesting happening in America. Interesting, I say in quotes, because it's actually super terrible. So grief and loss is a tsunami coming. Many of us are experiencing it right now as a result of the pandemic, but there's an impact on adolescents and younger children in America, and in particularly in Arizona, that is going to be affecting who is going to be our students. And so we're looking at ways that we can work closely with local school districts on approaching mental health in their communities in the same way that we've always worked with our community to deal with financial literacy, academic readiness, and all those other things that we've done. We're trying to find ways to help middle schools and high schools with what they're experiencing in their schools. But what's happening, of course, as a result of the pandemic is not only have many children experienced familial loss. Arizona's fourth in the country in caregiver loss for people under 18. So the primary caregiver dying in the last 2 years. But also the impacts of COVID on the economic well-being of the family, or people who've experienced long COVID. And so one of those things that, or the disabling effects of COVID, even if they have ostensibly recovered. For example, in my family, my father-in-law got COVID early mid-pandemic, had a stroke, permanently affected as a result of that. Not really counted in some of the larger statistics that we see. We're approaching 1 million deaths in the United States. Not really counted in the kind of vague long COVID, just an injury as a function of this. He's not alone in that regard. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people affected in that same way. I'm this age, his injury from COVID affects me differently than if he was my primary caregiver and I was a child who's at that same time. So what's coming through the schools right now is this wave of impact and wave of grief and loss, and a very complicated set of grief and loss, while we're all experiencing these transitions, as you heard Provost Gonzalez say today, about like changing our behavior and all these other things, which is ostensibly good and a nice evolution of our ability to manage the disease, but the impact of the disease is coming. And that's going to play out in mental health in a way that we got quite used to managing it from a medical and virus management point of view. Now we're going to be dealing with this for quite a while. That takes all of us working together to do this. Those of you who've taught for a long time know that every year, many of your students will have a caregiver die because they're about that age, or a grandparent die because they're about that age. And so as a result of that, what you're going to experience some more of is people who have lost someone before they got to school, or in the last couple of years. And that might be something that was true, but maybe not as known, or the acute impact of that was more spread out. Now it's going to be more common. And so we have, I'll talk a little bit about our resources in that regard, but just some important national data. So I talked about our strategy. So I can move through that. So here's where we are right now. So I'm making no distinction between our health centers and our counseling centers as it relates to mental health services, both as a point of fact, in the sense that we do almost as much mental health service at the health center as we do at the counseling centers, which is, for those of you who know this work, people find help where they're comfortable finding help. And so for a long time in the community, about 1/4 of primary care visits are for mental health reasons. That's national data. We see about the same thing, that people come in, sometimes they're knowledgeable in the health center. They know that they're experiencing anxiety or depression. Sometimes they just don't feel good. And they find their way to a doctor or nurse practitioner, which we have in our health centers. And we find that their presenting concerns are primarily a behavioral health or mental health issue like anxiety or depression. We don't make distinctions amongst those, kind of a no wrong door experience there. We assess what people needs and then move them in the services. So we have 5 health service clinics and 4 counseling clinics. There's one of each on every campus, of course, 8 to 5 Monday and Friday. One thing that we've evolved to, this started April of last year, is we launched what we call Open Call, Open Chat, which is a 24/7, 365 service where a professional mental health provider is available to any student at any time, for any need. And that student can chat, kind of like synchronous chat, like you would do on your phone, or it's through a web interface or an app, depending on the student's preference, with someone about your needs. You can schedule a telephone conversation or a telecounseling interview. And so this is 24/7, 365, anywhere in the world. The chat is available in 6 languages. Counseling is available in dozens languages. And as a result of launching this, we've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students use this. And it has expanded our service delivery to students globally and at all times of day. So what we have on campus for emergent students is kind of normal business hours, but available at any time without restriction and no cost is this additional feature. We were one of the first universities in the country to launch this type of service. We were the first university in the country to launch this as an extension of the counseling services. So most universities, when they launch this kind of service, they outsource it to a company, and that becomes, so the student's experience is, oh, we can't see you at 5:45 because our office door was closed, so I guess you got to wait till later. Or you happen to be studying abroad in South Korea, and we can't see you because of jurisdiction issues or time differences. So there's this other service, you can work with them. And students would experience that as kind of a rejection from the university. So after a number of years of working with this service, we found a way to ensure that these were our providers. And so everything that a student does with this service flows into our health record. And so this service is us. And so anybody that they're experiencing, anybody that's providing is one of our counselors for all intents and purposes. They can coordinate care with us. So if someone uses this service at 3 a.m, gets some chat support at that moment, and then walks into the health center the next day, we know what happened in that regard because they are our providers. We were the first people in the country to do that. And unsurprisingly, multiple universities are now copying that model because it's the right way to serve students. This is consistent with, of course, how the university has operated for a long time, which is anywhere you are in the world, we're there for you. And we've found a way to do that with mental health. Students are loving that. They're using it quite a bit. And it's allowing students to be a lot more in charge of their time and their day of what they want the service. But our traditional services within the university have remained intact. Again, no charge for any service. There was a period of time a number of years ago where we charged some for some services. We've eliminated that. So if you still hear that out in the environment from people who just kind of legacy thinking, you can remind them that there's no charge for any of those services. So walk-in availability. So there's multiple ways to access us. If you see someone that you're concerned about and you want to talk to us about it, you can just call us. And we have clinicians on call to consult about anything that you might need. And so we have what we call our clinician on duty, who's there for people who might walk in, who's there for faculty and staff who have a question about supporting someone, there for crisis response, anything at all. Always have someone available to talk. People can make appointments, which some people like to do. They go like, oh, I don't want to be seen today. I'm not going to walk in. Is there something available 2 Tuesdays from now? Because I know I've got a break and it's not an emergency and that's what I want to schedule. And then, of course, what we call open call, open chat. One of the questions that comes up all the time is what services are available. We do not provide long-term therapeutic services to students as a matter of course. What we provide as an entitlement for being a student is an assessment of the student's needs and then figuring it out from there in collaboration with the student, in collaboration with what it is that they might need clinically, what they're ready to do. So many students may have really complex personal needs. We assess them of might need to work on some complex trauma or things like that, may have a really great therapist for them in the community that we know about who might be able to do that work over time, but that student does not want to do that work right now, and that is okay. And so maybe one session with us just to learn some coping skills because they got a big presentation coming up or they got to get through their thesis and they want to just sort of have someone there to just be a stabilizing force for a period of time because they don't want to work on those things in that moment. Totally okay. I've always talked about this in my career is that we are service and model agnostic. We're not going to decide for the person what they need. We're going to give recommendations through the assessment. If we have services on campus that can serve them, we will offer that to them. If there's things off campus that we think might be best for them, we will offer that to them and then together make a plan. This is who we are. So we're just short of 40 FTE for clinicians on campus. That does not include, of course, the hundreds and hundreds of clinicians available through this service all over the globe. Right now we're up to 14 languages in the counseling center, which as far as I can tell, this might be where I do one of those logo things. I think we might speak the most languages in the country at this point, but I'll have to double check that before I put that up on the screen. But we're very proud of that. We've worked very hard to diversify our staff in all the areas of diversity. Recently hired one of 10 Afghan-born mental health clinicians in the country. Who joined our staff as an example. We have people who have incredible backgrounds. We have a former Olympic runner, someone who drove Indy cars. People have found their ways through different career paths to join the movement of trying to support people in their mental health, and we have attracted them to our work here. Like I said about telecounseling, what you need to remember in that regard, of course, other than our website, which has all this stuff, is that if any student needs anything, there's always something available at that moment. It is true, and this, you may have heard this concern before, it is true that if I wanted to make an appointment for next Monday at 4 p.m., I can't guarantee there's going to be an appointment at that time. But if someone wanted to walk in on that Monday at 4 p.m., I guarantee they'll be seen. Or if they wanted to use our open call, open chat service to connect with through telecounseling, through a clinician, I can near guarantee with that much lead time, they'd find that appointment. And that's a movement away from, again, this previous way of doing business, which is like, there's a clinic and that's your service, to this more expansive menu of service, which is we have ways to be seen in kind of that traditional way. We have this telecounseling way to do business. You could walk in if you needed to. And of course, trying to maximize how much support's available to all students through everybody. This is a couple of things. Again, this will all be in the deck that you can have, but what it looks like is really easy to navigate in terms of open call, open chat. You can put it on, people put it on their phone. We tell all students in orientation, in their first year orientation, to download the app. This is played really well with parents because it gives them a reminder that wherever their student is at any time in the world, that they can access a mental health provider. There's all sorts of assessments and other cool things that students could do to explore this stuff. We also have invested in the last number of years heavily in peer-to-peer impact programs, which is students helping students with their mental health. This is because A, it works, B, students have wanted it more and more over the last 10 years. So generationally, we're seeing this increase. It's always been the case, but an increase in students wanting to hear from each other. They're already having these conversations about mental health with each other. And so we're just further equipping them on how to do that. Through this Devils for Devils effort, we also provide training to faculty for your classroom, for your programs, for deans of colleges, anybody at all who might need more information about how to create maximally supportive mental health environments for your class or for your programs. We're there for that. We have a heavy emphasis on empathy in that regard as the platform for this work, that when you take an empathic approach, your ability to transcend that moment and the fears and the worries and the awkwardness of that starts to melt away because you're tapped into the other person's needs in that moment, and you can cross that threshold much easier than when you take either a sympathetic or, of course, an unsympathetic approach. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about ASU online students. They have their own proprietary service, which is not dissimilar to our open call, open chat, but it's specifically for ASU online students. It's called 360 Life Services. And so that's a little bit of a navigation challenge sometimes for students. And again, we take a no wrong door approach. So if an ASU online student connects with us, we don't turn them away. We find the ways to support them. But this is a service that's specifically designed for them and particularly attends to a number of things that were just talked about, has elements of financial literacy and other types of supports that are connected to this life services, is more of a wraparound. And it fits particularly well for online students who may have, might be a little older demographic in the main, or may have other kinds of needs that support. And so check that out if you want to see the supports there for ASU online students. I was talking very fast. I'm mindful of the time. That's me. Call me, email me, whatever you need to do. I'm glad to support. If it's an emergency, don't call me for solving the emergency. Call for help and then let me know. I usually find out right away anyway, so I can be supportive. But any questions or anything at all, just let me know. And if you want me to field questions, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. Do we have time to go around, Maria, to the different campuses?
Yes, we do.
Let's do that. Let's go down to downtown Phoenix campus. Do we have any questions?
There are no questions at the downtown campus.
All right, thank you so much. Polytechnic campus, do we have any questions?
Yes, Dr. Fresno, in terms of support for students, and it was very interesting how you pointed out the expectation that COVID and other things is going to have on students in this wave of need for grief counseling. Is there any way possible that maybe faculty could have a guide on the services you offer? Because there's some things that I'm hearing for the first time, like the services for online students, for example. So I think it might be helpful to have some kind of guide or directory of the things that we can share with students.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for that, Chris. And I will push out as many places as possible, as many of our links and guides as I can. If you think there are particular strategies that could work better, I'm open to that. I'm bound usually by my best ideas, and those are not always the best. So if you have ways that we can reach people farther, please do. Everything that I've said is currently listed on our website. And we've tried to organize that over time. It has evolved through feedback like yours right now, to navigate as easily as possible. So for one of the things we've called now, we have a place for student, kind of meets the mind of a student, that's called Where to Start. So on our webpage, people are like, I don't know what to do. And they're like, oh, where to start? And they click that and it gives them some navigation. So I welcome feedback from on our webpage, and to make it easier to navigate, ways that we can distribute that information. I can do that. Chris, I'll send you some stuff directly, of course, and then welcome the ideas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll try and make that slide deck available too.
Oh, yeah,
for our
absolutely,
senators.
absolutely.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions from Polytechnic, Chris?
We're good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Tempe campus. Any questions here?
I actually do have a couple of questions. Thank
Sure.
you for the presentation. I've had quite a few students that are distressed, and some of them have found that you don't do long-term care. And I'm wondering two things about that. One, what steps you take to ensure that they are able to get long-term care? Because I know that some of them have reported to me that it's very hard to actually find a counselor that's taking new patients.
Yep.
And then the second question is, does their health insurance cover it?
Yeah. Great question, because lighting the major league challenges associated with mental health care in America, or globally, really. And so what we attempt to do is first get the assessment right with them. So what does this person need and what do they want? And then from there, co-construct the treatment plan, which might include referral to a counselor in the community. We have invested in what we call care management, which is basically the new term for case management, in which we are working with that person to make the connection to those providers. When we're doing it well, which I always want us to, but if I would welcome feedback or incidents, or students can contact me directly if we did not do what we needed to do. When we're doing it well, we're talking to the student about what they need from us in that care management. Some students only need the list of names because that's all they want to do, and they actually don't want to engage in a lot of care management. Some students are embarrassed about engaging in care management. They want to be able to do this by themselves, but they don't really know how to as a new consumer of healthcare. And so we find ways developmentally to approach that. Some students have no idea how to even approach using their insurance or finding providers, of which we take a very active role in that regard. We'll make phone calls for people. We'll engage with insurance companies if necessary. So in the last 5 years, as provider networks have gotten more narrow, which they have, they've gotten more narrow, not because there aren't providers, but because fewer providers are taking insurance and fewer providers have openings. And so as a result of that, you're right, it is more difficult to engage. We've invested in care management, so I have more professionals doing care management. We've invested in our referrals department, which operates for both health and counseling, to help people navigate those referrals and make sure that if they're going to use insurance, that their insurance takes those, so they don't get caught in some of that in between. And the other thing we've done, which we've recently launched a new platform in this regard, is that we've enhanced our database of vetted providers, so that if someone wanted to just on their own, just look for somebody, on our website is a list of providers that we know, that we can vouch for, have done good work with college students, want to work with college students, often hold appointments available for our people, and that has smoothed it. So we can usually get people in faster than if they were operating on their own. That being said, sometimes it's not particularly fast because we're looking for the right fit, right clinical fit, right personal fit, and also availability. So we kind of hold on to them for as long as they're wanting it. needing it in order to do that warm handoff to the next provider. The whole time, we're also doing work with them. So if they need some support or some coping skills or things like that on their way to those sources, it's not only a referral strategy at that moment.
So just to follow up, so their insurance does cover it.
Well, insurances are supposed to.
Okay.
That being said, many insurance companies work very hard to not.
Cover it. So I wonder if maybe it could be a project of ASU to try to find ways to fill those gaps if needed. Not obviously you can't, pay out of pocket for every single person that needs counseling, but maybe to just help in the cases where it's just absolutely not going to be possible for the student to get counseling otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I welcome it.
Something.
I welcome every conversation about filling any gap and support. We have many students who are underinsured or uninsured, or if they have insurance, it's high deductibles, which is basically like not having insurance for many people. So we're trying to navigate all of those particulars at the same time. But I welcome that conversation.
Hi, Paul Carice.
Paul.
I've seen you make presentations before, so thank you for your work and for outreach efforts like this. This is probably more of a comment just to be on the agenda since the provost is here. We had a question earlier about financial literacy fitting into some kind of an educational program. Given that I've seen you make this presentation before and that, as you said, it's not getting better year after year, should there be some discussion about how ASU addresses these topics in orientation for students or in general studies or both? Just because you mentioned the question of prevention,
yep,
but you mostly were talking about, in effect, crisis care or,
yep.
Yeah. So thank you for your work. I don't expect you to have the answer to that question. I just thought I would put it on the table.
Well, thanks for that, Paul. And what I want to communicate is, yes, we should always be doing that. And doing this commenting in front of the provost about her life's work strikes me. It's presumptuous on my part, but we're of course, privileged to have people working on exactly that. Our efforts in orientation are attempting to approach that to provide parents and families, students themselves with some information and some strategies right out of the get-go, embedding wellness efforts into, for example, ASU 101 and the other freshman seminars, of course. And then in the last 3 years, we've invested some of our personnel in working with local school districts to try and drive into the pipeline more wellness efforts. We've done that in two ways. One, just materials, what we've called, if you go to our Devils for Devils page, you can see our work in that regard through work we've done with the high schools about training up faculty in the high schools, administrators, parents, and the students themselves on how to support each other. Our goal there would be to do exactly as you described. Like, can we push more well-being in there as the scientists in the community develop new ways that we need to do this business with families and with children, then taking that and then putting it in the schools through our efforts. So very much in the delivery of those evidence-based practices is what we're trying to do. Lots of work, of course, to be done. Usually a resource question above all others, whether it's in school districts or in communities, is like as much as we can drive that in there. I'm totally with you.
We do have one more question, but it's from one of my faculty who texted it to me. So I'm going to ask Maria when she goes online to have Senator Kwan take the floor. No more questions from Tempe.
All right, thank you. Let's move on down to the West Campus. Are there any questions from the West Campus?
I have the question.
I do. Oh, somebody else from the West Campus?
No, I will call on the Zoom attendees when the time comes. I'll get to you, Hala, in a minute.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so my question is this. What is the best way to contact your services for someone who has already been to the health center and had a difficult experience there?
Well, if someone has a complaint or concern, they can contact me directly. That's fine. Happy to talk to someone about a concern. If they're trying to re-engage with the services, I hope they'll give us another chance if they've had a difficult time. But if they have a complaint or concern or want help navigating that directly to me is totally okay.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Let's check our online questions.
We have 6 online questions. First up is Christopher Sharp. Senator Sharp, please unmute.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. I'm with the School of Social Work, so we're kind of in the same arena in many senses. And I also have spoken with the ASU counseling, Erin Trujillo. I don't know if she's still there. Had meetings with her specifically regarding the needs of our tribal and indigenous students. And I have a question, just a general question. Because we were really focusing on mental health, and if there's other presenting concerns, say like if there's maybe some substance use issues, or perhaps maybe, and one thing that we don't really talk about is the violence, intimate partner violence, and those types of issues. If those arise, are those applicable to ASU counseling and the care management?
Yeah, absolutely. So now that you say this, Chris, if I had to redo this, I would talk about wellness and health at ASU as opposed to mental health in particular, because, you know, writ large, we're looking at the well-being of students. And so thanks for that. Erin does still work for us. And so if we need to make sure that you're both reconnected, I'll make sure of that. But our efforts, we do see students who are experiencing substance use, abuse, misuse, dependence. Students in recovery. We have a collegiate recovery community for students who are in active recovery. That's quite active for students who need that support or want that support. We have a lot of effort, federally and state funded, grant funded efforts in violence prevention, particularly sexual and relationship violence prevention. Recently, the victims advocacy services that were part of the police department have been moved to my shop. So those two positions that do victim services work directly for me. So we think of violence prevention, education, response, intervention as part of our overall efforts. And if I didn't want to imply, but I'm glad you're asking for clarity, that is all of what we do. And so any student for any reason that needs our support, any well-being effort, we can help.
Thank you. Just a quick comment, and maybe we can connect after the meeting, but I'm on part of a research team out of the School of Criminology, and we're researching the experiences with violence of our Indigenous college ASU students. We have approximately 3,000 here at the ASU campus, but also barriers to care and cultural needs, and to really assess if there's ways that ASU can improve, not just in counseling, but in all of our support services. But I'll be interested to connect with you once we start getting the results in.
I would love that. I look forward to that, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Sarah Bomarcich, please.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. My name is Sarah Bomarcich. I had actually several questions. One is I refer students to counseling service as often, and they come back and they tell me like they can't get an appointment for a month or so. And in fact, these are traditional appointments, not the chat that you were talking about. And I did check while you were talking, and the earliest appointments for both telehealth and in person were in late April. So question one, is that wait time standard? Question two is I've also heard a lot from my students, more than ever before, of student suicides on campus this year. And I'm wondering if that is also a growing problem. And then the third question is, what about resources for faculty and staff? Because just as I've noticed student mental health problems increasing, so too I've seen mental health issues increasing among my colleagues and friends on campus. So could you speak to that as well, please? Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for the question. I'm going to do them in reverse order. So
Okay.
for support for faculty and staff, you have services through employee wellness as part of your employment for the university, which operates through they're called employee wellness. And so if you look for that, it's not provided by the counseling services that I support, but it is provided through the university. Jillian McManus is the executive director of that program. She has a number of counselors who work for her. And so that's a benefit as being a member, a benefits eligible member of the university. You can engage with those. And even if you're not, you can still engage with them to get the supports that you need. So start there for the employee wellness for faculty and staff. The question about suicidality, while nationally suicidality rates have increased, there is quite a bit of misinformation out there about the suicide rates at the university that was born out of some confusing information in social media and other places. And so I caution you, if you're reading some things about the number of suicides on campus or like actual numbers, that you take those with a grain of salt. The things that are in the widest spread are not accurate at all. That is not to be say that students haven't died by suicide. They have died by suicide. We have always working our hardest to prevent any of that from happening, but there is quite a bit of misinformation out there about our rates. We don't publish our rates, and there's some good reasons for doing that. Now, to your question about availability, I trust you. You went and looked. There might not be some availability through our just making a direct appointment for a number of weeks. I want to be clear that the open call, open chat is not only chat, but actually involves telecounseling and video, so telephone and video. And so if someone wants to make an appointment for that, they can use that service. That still is us. It is not in the clinic itself, so it's not an in-person appointment, but if someone wants to do telecounseling, they can book that, and those lead times tend to be a day or two at the most. So it's not just chat. So if I emphasize the chat, I did that mainly because that's a new service for us. And also about 50% of the users of that like to just use the chat, which is kind of probably a generational question. But so a student could use the telecounseling or could walk in on the day that they want to be seen. And so if someone needs to be seen and they want to be seen that day, they can walk in and we'll assess what their needs are. And so the availability of open appointments through the health portal is a function of open slots for those types of things, but we always reserve spots for walk-ins, and then there's always availability through our open call, open chat. Hopefully,
Okay,
I think I
thank
did.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Robert Wood, please unmute.
Hi. Okay, good presentation. I appreciate it very much. One thing I've noticed, I taught about 4,000 freshmen this year. So I've seen a lot of, crisis firsthand. And one of the things I've noticed, it seems as though the best solution for the student would be to ratchet hours way back. You got somebody with 15 hours, 16, 17 hours. If they could go back to 9 or 10 or even 6 hours, and at least you might say get a partial value out of the semester, that would be the best solution. However, that's very punitive in two ways. Number one, if they're an international student, their visa might be pulled on them. And number two, if they're on a scholarship some way, sometimes the scholarship is all or none. In other words, if you go from 15 hours to 10 hours, you lose your whole scholarship, okay, just like that. And so my question is one of scale. For international students, is there a way we can, for lack of a better term, keep them in a ghost course so they would have the 12 hours necessary to keep them in the country so they could make some progress towards their degree? And then for somebody on scholarship, is there a way to talk to financial aid and have scholarship scaled in some way to the hours they're taking rather than be an all or nothing proposition?
Well, without addressing the complexity of the question associated with a ghost course or per credit dollars, I'll say this. Our efforts with every student will engage with any parts of the universities either on their behalf or with them to solve problems individually. So that's been our strategy. You're asking kind of an institutional question, which I'll leave to the provost and others, and if you want to field that. But on an individual level, we engage with financial aid to help support if someone needs to be repackaged, the first checking to see what the consequences are of things that you're talking about, just so that people are well informed. And then often we're engaging them closely with the Dean of Students Office, who does a lot of that work on behalf of the student to support that. But to the point of financial aid or credits.
There we go. Yeah, I'll just add to that and to say that anything's possible. And we really, really try to work with students on a case-by-case basis. So if somebody comes to Counseling Center and a scholarship is at risk, or there's an international student status at risk, we will engage those parts of the university, just as Dr. Krasnow said. And in fact, we do that quite a bit. We did that particularly around COVID, where we're really trying to come up with creative ways to figure out how we serve our international students who weren't able to make it back, and what are we going to do for them in the summer when they couldn't return to their homes. We're doing that right now for Ukrainian and Russian students, trying to figure out how they take care of their livelihoods and continue on their path. So we do that, and we will engage all the forces that we need to. I can't say we can solve everybody's problem, but we really put in a good effort.
Well, I appreciate that, because I've seen some, like I say, when you're exposed to 4,000 students in a year, see all kinds of things, okay? So I appreciate your efforts.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you. Can I have Senator Vanita Hawthorne James unmute, please?
Hello, I'm here. Thank you again for the presentation. I was thinking of what you said about the tsunami of mental health coming. And as you look at high school juniors, started doing remote schooling and disruptive schooling in March 2020, they will have had 2 years of disruptive schooling, and then they're coming to us in the fall of 2022. So they have had a lot. So my question to you is there going to be any kind of training or resources for faculty and staff for such a huge cohort of students who've gone through things for the last 2 years? Nothing. Everyone has, of course, but especially this cohort. I was just wondering.
Yeah, we need to do more. It's funny how the world connects. I was this morning having a conversation with Cassandra Asco, Dean of Students in Tempe, about this very question, which is, what is it about this next cohort of first-year students that is similar and different than the previous and will be similar and different than the now? That's a conversation we should always be having. However, to your point, the level of complexity over these last number of years demands perhaps different ways of talking to you all about ways to be supportive, getting ideas from all of you about what you imagine or have seen in your classrooms, as the last speaker mentioned, so that we can improve upon that. More than anything, what I can offer is awareness of complex lives is about 80% of it. And so in the same way that Eduardo talked about, like reaching out to that person who's dropped out of your courses and just trying to touch base, that as a behavior is life-saving. Well, I'm not sure whose life you're going to save. There's going to be somebody though, because just the sheer act, just the awareness of the complex traumas, the disparities in health impact and community impact, all of that, the more our communities can recognize that these people in front of us, borrowing a line from a rabbi who gave an invocation after 9/11, talking about the people who died on 9/11. He said 3,000 people didn't die, one person died 3,000 times. That has stayed in my head for my work in a large community. We don't have 77,000 students. We have one student 77,000 times. And if we can get our brain wrapped around that, then this person in front of me and this person in front of me and this person in front of me, they are similar in some ways. And the fact that they're all joining us in fall of 2022, but they're different in all these other ways. And if I can engage in that and invest in my energy in that, then I have the best chance of doing it. At the same time, to your point, Vanita, we can give you more resources in addition to that. We can give you more easy access to us for consulting, more top of mind availability of our resources, strategies for impact that are non-clinical that anybody can do so that you can make a difference in this person's life in addition to being a helping other. So you have my commitment to work on that and to make sure that we keep you as prepared as possible.
Thank you. And we're glad to help as well. We all care so much. And we just, if there's anything globally that we could do.
Yep.
Thank you. 2 more questions, Aaron. I'm so sorry.
I feel bad for Sally.
Campus President-elect Hala King.
Yes, hi. Thank you again for the presentation. I think after so many colleagues talked, I have realized that what I've been writing on paper has been sort of articulated a little bit. The pandemic that we had, the economic crisis that caused by it, the attack on LGBTQ issues, the plight of the indigenous people, the attack on women's rights, the national reckoning with racism, all these things have increased the distress and mental health problems among our college kids, not to mention what Chris mentioned about the substance abuse that is often connected to mental health and that has a stigma associated with it. I believe counseling centers cannot and should not be expected to solve the problems. So I have 3 comments that in fact align with what my colleagues said. My first comment is that the president, the provost, the board of regents must articulate the importance of creating a culture of well-being and safety. For example, hate speech, in my opinion, is not free speech. That really makes several people uncomfortable. Not only that, the university should provide faculty with training on how to create an inclusive and healthy learning environment. My second comment is that students should be provided at their formal orientation with structured opportunities to learn about individual well-being and practices that are good for their health. And the third thing is what Robert said, in some way or another. The university should provide a clearly stated good leave of absence and re-enrollment practices for students who have to take time off because they have been singled out for whatever reason in their lives. And again, I thank you for all you do, but I think unless a change comes from the administration level, where the students are at the center of it, I'm a big proponent of just like, don't wait for the tumor to increase in size. Once it's at the very beginning, you can attack it. So I think students should be given training at their formal orientation on how there's some good practices and structured opportunities in place for them at school to benefit from. So thank you for listening. It's just like after I had these points, I found that everyone else sort of was saying similar things, but these are my points. Is there any policy in place, in fact, for students who really have to take time off because they need to?
There are multiple policies in place to do that. We help students navigate those all the time. I think sometimes students will project onto the environment more rigidity than is there. And as you heard from the provost, we're dealing with students' individual needs all day, every day to support them. I think if a student experiences some sort of structural barrier, then you should reach out to people like myself or others in leadership so that we can knock those barriers down. There's been many circumstances in which we've helped students either take time that they needed to through temporary or longer leaves with no risk to them, including international students managing visa challenges, including students on scholarship, as you heard the provost say. And thank you for the other comments as well.
Thank you. Last question from Senator HLT Kwan, please.
Thank you very much for that very informative presentation. I also want to echo the point made by my colleague, Professor King. My question is a very short one. I understand that your services and helpline are 24/7, so, but they are forced registered students. So what are the services available and how do students in between terms, so January, December, summer, how do they access resources when they are not enrolled but still a student at ASU? And also, a lot of students feel that they get just basically kicked out as soon as they graduate, even though they are still a ball of confusion and madness in the immediate aftermath of graduation. What sort of services available do you have for them?
Sure. So there's no gap in service. So if a student is in between terms, they're still eligible for our services. So if a student experienced that, you can have them contact me directly, although we're not hearing much about that. So that's not a concern for us. If someone was registered and they're taking even a B session, we can see all that. We can see that they're a student and they're coded as such. That's fine. They're still a student. As it relates to graduation, we're always there for any student for consulting, regardless of where they are in their life. And so if someone graduates and 6 months later, they're like, I don't know, I need this service and I don't know what to do, but I remember counseling. We get those phone calls all the time. We don't turn them away. We figure out with them, what do you need? We basically extend that care management to the whole world. We get phone calls from people all over the world saying, you're a mental health provider, I need help. And even if they're not a student, we're not going to necessarily provide direct service to them, but we will say, well, what's your insurance, or do you have insurance? If you don't have insurance, here's some options. And so we just welcome the phone calls from anybody who might need that support. We don't want anybody feeling alone out there. It is a very challenging mental health landscape in the world,
right.
and we want to be supportive for them.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm in the School of Social Transformation. We have a very high percentage of students of color and first generation and Native students. And many of them have financial resources, and a number of them have had to take a leave of absence. And when they are in that leave of absence, is also when they also have a lot of mental health issues.
Absolutely.
And they don't have services, or at least that's the report.
Yeah. So anybody who's got that feeling, they can call us to consult, and we can try and figure out a plan for them in that in-between period, or again, of course, after graduation.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much, Aaron. And I want to come back to the observation of Senator Hawthorne James in terms of resources for faculty. Aaron, I'm sure we'll be inviting you back again to next year. We're happy to work with you and to see if we can get as much information out as we can to our colleagues. I'm pleased now to invite Executive Vice President of ASU Knowledge Enterprise, Sally Morton, to come speak with us about some of the interesting challenges and opportunities we have in front of us now as we grow. Oh, I have right here. Sorry.
Great. Wonderful. So thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here with you today. Thank you for the invitation. I've been at the university about a year. I'm a professor of statistics with joint appointments in mathematical and statistical sciences, as well as the College of Health Solutions. I came here from, Virginia Tech, where I was Dean of the College of Science. And as I said, I've been here about a year. Thank you so much. So this is an opportune time to speak about the Science and Technology Centers in the New Economy Initiative. You're at exactly the right time. And what I want to do today is spend just a few minutes telling you about them and then entertain your questions. And I also have a question for you. As you can see on the slide, I'm the presenter, but much of this content comes from Dean Kyle Squires of the Fulton Schools of Engineering. And there's also an email address there, STC for Science and Technology Centers at asu.edu. That should be your source if you have further questions or would like to become involved. I don't know. Where should I point it at? I'm sorry. I'm present. Okay, there we go. Great. Sorry about that. So the New Economy Initiative, its purpose is, and it's a statewide initiative that involves all 3 state universities, is to propel Arizona into the so-called new economy, 4th industrial revolution, the gig economy. It is to make our economy more resilient to economic downturn. In the pandemic, 45% of households in Arizona lost income. So this is really a statewide effort to move our economy forward. And we're delighted that ASU is part of this effort. This year, FY22, fiscal year 2022, is the first year of what is hoped to be 5 years of state funding. ASU's responsibility in the New Economy Initiative is connected to our strengths in engineering and technology, and the other 2 state universities, University of Arizona and Northern Arizona University, have been given assignments which connect to their strengths. There's 3 parts in the New Economy Initiative at ASU. The first is the Science and Technology Centers, which is what I was asked to focus on today. The second is workforce development. And the third is to really propel new startups in industry across our state. So what is the Science and Technology Center? The first thing is it is not a usual research center. If you've done work for the National Science Foundation, the NSF, STC is used there. Those are really research-focused centers. This is not so much about research as it is to have a partnership with industry. So the idea is to actually work directly with industry, understand what their issues are, and together solve those issues and push the solutions back out into the economy. This partnership also involves industry funding for joint projects. There have been 5 science and technology centers identified so far. The 2 on the bottom row, energy and materials and advanced manufacturing, have been launched this year so far. Again, you are at an opportune moment in the evolution of the science and technology centers. The 3 on the top row, future communications technologies, extreme environments and human performance, will be launched moving forward. And I'll tell you a little bit about that timeline as well. So there are really 6 key pieces to a science and technology center, and you are key to this, the faculty. Facilities, we're working very hard in a knowledge enterprise to use some of this funding to expand our core facilities, for example, building clean rooms for the first 2 centers. As I've mentioned, industry involvement is key, entrepreneurship, workforce development, and philanthropy. So this slide tells you what an STC is and what an STC Science and Technology Center does. In the upper right, on the right column, that top bullet is really key. This is our opportunity to engage industry in determining a roadmap for the problems that they are facing in the areas that each Science and Technology Center represents. So how can you be involved? I'm sorry, let me first say what a Science and Technology Center supports. First of all, Science and Technology Centers are focused around what are called Science and Technology Center Proposer Days. We've already had one for the first two centers, but again, you're not too late, and I'll explain that in a moment. Research projects co-funded by industry, impact engineering fellowships for graduate students, and a workforce training program. And again, enabling equipment. We're working very hard on getting equipment, core facilities for each of the Science and Technology Centers. If you're a faculty member, you can self-associate. You can volunteer yourself to be part of a Science and Technology Center. Everyone is welcome by either participating in a Proposers Day or submitting a successful proposal with an industry partner. So what does success look like? We want to accelerate research. We want to have startup companies. We want companies to come to Arizona to, again, really propel Arizona into the new economy. We want to translate research, disseminate it into the economy. We want to catalyze the future. I'm not very good at this, clearly. There we go. Okay, so as I mentioned, there's already been a Proposers Day. These will occur semi-annually every 6 months. There was one just last month to do with the first two Science and Technology Centers, the one on energy and materials and the one on manufacturing. In those Proposers Days, faculty and industry partners came together and developed a funding opportunity announcement, or a FOIA, that calls for proposals for faculty to partner with industry to propose projects to be funded by the Science and Technology Center. There will be a submission of those proposals, and I'll show you the timeline, the specific timeline in a moment. They will be reviewed, and then projects will be funded. And you can see in the lower right, we anticipate 3 to 6 projects awarded per STC, with about 1 PhD student funded per project. So this is where we are right now. The FOIAs have just been released on March 23rd. So we're just a little bit past that. Proposals are due on April 29th. They will be resolved, awarded or not, by May 20th. And again, we'll start to work with those industry and faculty teams on contracts in June or July of 2022. So the FOIAs for the first two Science and Technology Centers have been released. If you are interested in those Science and Technology Centers, I encourage you to write an email to stc@asu.edu. I actually have copies of the announcements here with me, but I think it best if you contact that email directly so you can get the latest. So again, where we are now, there's only been one Proposer Day held so far, but the FOIA adequate timing for you to submit a proposal. We anticipate that the Proposers Days for the latter 3 Science and Technology Centers will be held in the fall. Dates are not known yet. Again, if you think to yourself, hey, I'd really like to be involved in the Extreme Environments STC, I encourage you to write an email to stc@asu.edu and say, put me on the mailing list. Get me involved so you can be part of that Proposers Day. So I'm going to end there in the interest of time, but I do have a question for the Faculty Senate, and I'm sure you'll have some questions for me. How can we communicate more widely about the STCs, and in particular regarding the STC Proposers Days? What happened for the day in February was the School of Engineering came up with a list of somewhere between 250 to 300 faculty. We sent out email invitations. Those were faculty both within the College of Engineering as well as in other colleges. The email invitation actually came out from my email. I received several emails from faculty saying, hey, could I be involved? I said, great, please show up on this day. Some people said, I'm teaching at that time, I can't attend. I said, we're keeping a recording of the engagement on the Proposers Day. So people became involved in all different kinds of ways. Could we have done that better, more expansively? I'm confident. And I look for your ideas on how to do a better job next time. So I'll close there and welcome questions.
All right, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and go to the downtown Phoenix campus. Are there any questions?
There are no questions from the downtown campus.
All right, thank you. Let's move over to the Polytechnic campus. Do you have any questions?
We're good at Poly, thank you.
All right, thank you. Here at the Tempe campus, do we have any questions?
Hi, thank you so much. I do actually have a question. I am in the School of Social Transformation, and I teach a course called Human Rights and Sustainability. And I'm a little curious, no, I'm a lot curious as to how you're incorporating into this project that's already well underway, issues of industry as problematic. And the ways that we may have a conflict of interest if we are partnering in that way, we get rewarded. And maybe we don't look at the ethical and environmental and human costs of industrial production and things like that. So I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
Sure, that's a great question. Thank you. The first thing that I would say is I think there are people that are very much thinking about that. Let's take the extreme environments, or let's take energy and materials and think about waste and sustainability, or even manufacturing. I think your point could pertain to any of the science and technology centers. As the faculty here are forming ideas about the science and technology centers, I think they're thinking about those issues, and I think they would be delighted to hear from you and hear your views. So again, I would encourage you to write to STC@asu.edu, say, I'm thinking about this and I'd like to be involved. I would also venture to say that not all industry doesn't think about these same issues. When I sit down with industry partners, they are very concerned, I think in a very honest and genuine way, about issues of sustainability and so on. So while you may, I can understand your point about a conflict of interest, but I think that dialogue could also take place with industry.
I should just stay at the microphone probably. Yeah, so thank you for that. I think the growth paradigm is one of the things that's been rather untouchable. So I would be delighted if somebody wanted to talk about the growth paradigm itself as potentially being problematic, a constant need for growth and an economy built around that constant need for growth and what that means for materials, usage, extraction, et cetera. But doesn't have to happen here.
Well, I would, if you would allow me. I think the new economy initiative is actually trying to get away from that economy of growth by moving to jobs that are high paying, resilient, anti-fragile. Right now, Arizona is very much an economy based on growth, and it's moving forward, growth of construction and so on. So the idea is actually to move away from that. So I think your points are very consistent with some of the goals of the new economy and that the state itself has identified.
That's helpful. I think that there's an additional implication of that from a human rights perspective, and that is when we do move to a tertiary economy, we tend to move the primary production that's dirty and dangerous to other countries. And I'm delighted to think that they would perhaps include somebody like me in the conversations. However, once the agenda is already set and the ship is sailed, it seems a little bit late.
Maybe I've been remiss in not being entirely clear. There's been one proposer day so far. Those will occur every 6 months. So in 6 months, we'll have another one about energy and materials and manufacturing. And I anticipate this dialogue will not be static. It will be dynamic as issues are raised. So I may have overstated that it's already happening for those two STCs. I see this as very dynamic over time. And
think it
again, I would
would be great-
encourage you to engage.
It would be great if you could share with the Senate the upcoming dates, then we can distribute
Right.
that to our senators and then
Absolutely.
we can make sure everybody's
And
on board.
yeah, and they're unknown at this time, but again, that's a great suggestion through this dialogue. And I would welcome other suggestions about how to sort of engage more faculty in this effort.
Thank you.
I understand exactly why you were trying to identify likely people to participate in this. On the other hand, that puts a tremendous burden on you to actually understand all of the possible ramifications for this. Wouldn't it just be easier to send out a message to all the faculty explaining what this was and suggesting ways of collaborating, cooperating, coming up with proposals?
Sure. I was a messenger, actually. Engineering asked for the message to go through me for this first Proposers Day, but we could certainly do that in the future. Absolutely. We could do ASU Now articles if people read those. I know faculty are incredibly busy. That may not be the best source. Also, emails many times go unopened, so I think it's going to have to be many forms of communication or different routes by which people could hear. Yeah.
No more questions from Tempe. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. The West Campus, do you have any questions?
No, thank you. They got answered. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
we have a couple of
Oh, we do.
questions
I'm
on
sorry, I
Zoom.
forgot
Sorry.
online. Go
We
ahead,
can't
Maria.
forget Zoom.
Yeah.
So Senator Heather Maring has asked me to read the question on her behalf. Have you considered also working with students in the humanities who often have excellent research, analytical, and verbal skills?
Yes, absolutely. Students and faculty in the humanities. This should not be thought about as solely focused on engineering in terms of involvement. The problems are engineering technology driven, but I think we need the entire university community involved. So there would be absolutely no barrier to faculty and or students from humanities being involved. And in fact, I think they need to be.
Excellent. One more question. They have asked me to read it on their behalf. So here we go. It says, can you ask how many projects will be funded? 3 or 4 have been mentioned, but that sounds like a low number.
Right. So again, I could see my presentation wasn't entirely clear. We anticipate 3 to 6 projects funded per round of funding per STC. So there's 5 STCs, right? So there's opportunity to submit proposals for funding twice a year. So that's 6 to 12 projects per year per STC. But it's also key to remember these are jointly funded with industry. So you go in with an industry partner who says, yes, I'm willing to put money on the table to combine with ASU state funding to fund this project and to fund a student.
Thank you. Senator Wells.
Thank you. So first of all, I just want to put a broader context to this. So my understanding is the funding for this came from the state legislature on the New Economies Initiative. And I just want the senators to know this is after many years where the universities used to request a minimum per resident student funding level that the legislature repeatedly refused to do. So that's accurate, I take it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Wells. This has been my understanding, again, new to the university. This has been more than a decade-long attempt to garner such funding from the state.
So, and then my more substantive question is, so this is a form of industrial policy, and my question is related to public versus private benefits. So the idea is that this is a partnership, but the question, how is the public going to gain? Obviously, the industry partners are seeking to gain, but how are you going about to try to assure that there's sort of a broader public benefit, and this doesn't something that gets patented for private profit?
Oh, yes, very good question. The state is intent on this to develop more jobs, high-paying jobs within the state. And in fact, in garnering this funding, that is how we motivated the request. And in fact, we need to report. I've already reported to ABOR, the Arizona Board of Regents, twice on the New Economy Initiative. So the metrics are very much driven about economic value, addition of high-paying jobs in the state. That's what the state's focused on.
Thank you. I'm going to take 2 more questions, Zoom, and then I'm going to go to you. Okay. Oh, actually, yes, give me 2 more questions from Zoom first. If I can have Senate President-elect Penny Dolan.
Oh, thank you. I have a question regarding in a way, like the physical part of this. I am on the Polytechnic campus, and I know we have a new school being built and set up. Are these centers going, two-part question, these centers going to have physical, actual centers? And then the second question is this going to be a Tempe-centric situation, or will it be distributed through the campuses?
That's an excellent question, Dr. Dolan. And I was actually on your campus today, earlier this morning, at the Poly campus, speaking about the New Economy Initiative and Science Technology Centers to the mayor of Mesa and several council members. So in terms of physical locations, in the new School of Manufacturing, which is being built on your campus in Poly, there will be offices for the Manufacturing Science and Technology Center. However, the key facilities will be in the research park at the Macro Technology Works, because that is where we have clean room capability. I actually think of these science and technology centers as intellectually spread out across all campuses. So there will be a combination of both physical as well as involvement across all campuses. And I was delighted to be on your campus again this morning for about 3 hours, working with, as I said, the Mesa mayor and talking about developments there. Thank you.
Thank you. Final question for Zoom, and this is for Senator Feeney.
Hi, thank you for the information, and this is great opportunity with STC. My question is about nonprofits. I know you mentioned industry involvement. How much leverage or eligibility of other entities, not necessarily for profit? There are companies that are B-type companies or not necessarily for profit. I generalized it as nonprofit in that category. Would they be eligible?
Absolutely. I mean, I think when I've said industry, I worked in industry nonprofit for 20 years before I became an academic. I think of it very encompassing both for-profit and nonprofit. They are welcome. I think the key is for an industry player, profit or nonprofit, they have to be willing to partner. And there's ways in which they can fund, co-fund projects with faculty here and students at ASU. Thank you for pointing that out.
Slide that.
Hi, so my name's Hugh Barnaby, and I'm at in electrical engineering here on the Tempe campus. And I have a comment, and then I have a question.
Sure.
So the comment is that I've received funds from the New Economy Initiative to purchase equipment. I had a lot of funds coming in from the federal government, but we were short on it. And so the New Economy Initiative was able to supply a little bit more funds to help us close the deal. So I appreciate that. And I think it worked out well for us. And it's going to fit very well because I have an industry partner for which I'd like to propose. However, when I go to the website, I don't know where, nowhere is it indicated on any website where you actually put the proposal in. So I'd like that to be, I just did a search and I couldn't find anything. So, it's just a lot of the boilerplate stuff. So are we supposed to email you, or can something be posted up online so that it's easy for us to get to wherever we're supposed to submit these proposals?
I take your point. There's actually a meeting on Friday about the website to try to do better.
Yeah, there's no
make
link,
sure.
no nothing that I can see.
If you want the announcement for proposals, please, you're welcome to email me, but the best place to email is stc@asu.edu and say, I would like the announcement for proposals, but I'll take your point and say
the FOA.
the FOA,
Okay,
and we need to
thanks.
do a better job on the website, which is The website is very externally facing now because frankly, again, with ABOR and the state's focus on this, we're trying to make sure that the website also serves those external partners, but we could do a better
And the
job.
due date is the end of April sometime?
Yeah, I think I had it on a slide a bit ago. Yep. Thank you. Other questions? Nope.
No more
Okay,
questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Again, if you'd like to make that slide deck available to us, we'll be happy to disseminate that through the Senate. Thank you, everyone, for your engagement and for your questions. Let's move on then to item number 8, unfinished business and general orders. We have no unfinished business, so we can begin new business with our first reads to prepare you for the motions that we will be acting on in our next meeting. And as a reminder, these items are for informational purposes only, although senators may certainly seek clarification. Full discussion of these motions is reserved for our next meeting. I will turn the time over then to Denise.
Thank you. All right, hopefully you can see our agenda there. This is to make things a little bit faster. Or maybe not, because it's not working for me. All right, let me just say this. I will stop the share. Stop share. Okay. CAPC will be considering 4 minor changes, including changes in minor names. These are at the bottom of your list of your agenda. And these will only be reviewed and voted on by CAPC and will not return to the Senate. Please read them and let us know if you have any questions or concerns. In addition, if we move back up the agenda, you'll see that CAPC will be reviewing and voting on 20 requests. These requests come from Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, Lindbergh School of Global Management, the new College of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences, College of Integrative Arts, Sciences and Arts, College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, W.P. Carey School of Business, and the College of Global Futures. Instead of reading each one of these motions individually and to keep this under a minute, please read the motions on your agenda or online. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise. That was impressive. If you have any questions or concerns regarding this upcoming proposal, these upcoming proposals, please contact Denise or me before the CAPC meeting, which will take place on Thursday, March the 31st. Other motions that we have as well. We have one additional motion for a first read. This motion is a change to our bylaws and is brought by CAPC. Again, this is for informational purposes only and can be discussed at our April Senate meeting. Denise.
Thank you. And Maria, if you can go ahead and put up the agenda.
Closed it. Give me 1 second.
Okay. All right. Senators, if you look at this agenda and you click on, and Maria, could you click on the part that says, go down, right there, motion 2022-37. And then if you click on the CAPC bylaws and amendments, this is a document showing all the changes that we have made to the bylaws. CAPC has worked on this since the beginning of the semester. The team has done a great job. It hasn't been worked on in decades, and there were a lot of changes that needed to be made. All right, if we go back and you click on, go back one more. You click on changes and rationale for the changes. All right, you can see that there are a number of rationales for each change. So make sure you read that so you can see, for example, we've got schools now, so we changed each college and we added or school. We changed some of the wording so it fits with what is currently being used. There are no programs on here. There was a number of reformatting and error corrections, that kind of thing. So this has been posted. We will be talking about this in a month. So make sure you look at it. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you again. So we do have 2 second reads, which means we have an action item for today. We're going to vote on these second reads, beginning with new course proposals that were distributed by email on March 16th. Now, it's important to note that these proposals include 2 courses that were removed by this body on January 31st for further discussion and consideration. Those 2 courses were JHR 378, Poverty, Inequality, and Social Justice in Latin America, and JHR 425, The Politics of Immigration. The faculty involved reached an agreement and updated the courses. All of the course proposals will be handled now in gross. Does anyone wish to remove any of the new course proposals from the list that we have? All right, hearing none, we will vote on these courses. Maria.
Okay, so the poll should be open in front of you and it reads, do you approve of Senate Motion 2022-36 new course proposals in gross? A for yes, B for no, C to abstain. Okay, closing the poll. 95 votes, 94%, motion passes.
All right, thank you so much, Moshe. Okay, let's see where we are. Our next second read and action item is from CAPSI. Back to you, Denise.
All right, CAPSI met, discussed, and voted to support motion 2022-35, which is a request from the College of Integrative Arts and Sciences for the establishment of an undergraduate degree, Associate of Arts, Military Studies. We now bring this motion to you, the Senate at large. Thank you.
Thank you again, Denise. A motion has been made to approve a request from the College of Integrated Arts and Sciences for the establishment of an undergraduate degree, Associate of Arts in Military Studies. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will vote on this request.
Okay, do you approve of the CAPSI motion in gross as read on 03/28/2022? Vote A, yes, A for yes, B for no, C to abstain. Closing the poll. Motion passes with 94 votes, 89%.
Thank you so much. We have no further motions or resolutions, and this concludes our new business. As noted on the agenda, we do have 3 committee reports, beginning with the Committee on Committees. Senator, yes, over there would be fine. Senator Paul Carisse, I have to get used to that one, Paul. Carisse, go ahead.
Sorry, thank you, Eduardo. So just a quick update, everyone to look for an electronic ballot on Senate elections, Academic Assembly elections coming. There'll be 2 emails coming from the Provost office. Maria, I'm right on that, from the Provost office. So they should be coming in early April to give advance notice that a final electronic ballot will be coming and the window of opportunity to vote. For the spring elections, these are for campus president-elect positions and for the various grievance committees, faculty grievance committees, which require that the faculty be tenured associate professors or full professors, and then the academic professional grievance committees, representation from all 4 campuses. So the Committee on Committees is working productively to get the final ballot put together. We are recruiting people right now to people who've been nominated to stand for these positions, and we're nearing the end of that process. And then everyone in the Academic Assembly will be getting these email messages from the Provost. So that's the update.
All right, thank you so much, Paul. I should explain that having a surname that is frequently mispronounced as Pagan as opposed to Pagan, I've always tried to be very sensitive to how they should be pronounced, but then there's personal choice. So there you go. Thank you, Paul. All right, next we have is Chad Kennedy, who will be reporting for University Services and Facilities Committee. Chad.
Hello there. Oh, great, perfect. Shared it just in time. Yeah, so we actually have 3 things that we've been really working on. 3 RFCs, 205, 221, and 228. The first thing that was really important, we met with Dr. Olson, our VP and CFO for ASU, Alex Conan, VP of Facilities, talking about how new and old facilities are allocated as far as maintenance, decision-making on when we're going to make new facilities versus spending money on existing facilities. Because we didn't feel like we really had a good communication mechanism since we're on the facilities committee. So, but we had a fantastic meeting. The next steps really for that aspect is we're going to have probably periodic surveys and meetings, probably once a semester. So I'm going to follow up with Alex on that. So that's kind of our next steps for that one. For RFC 221, we also met with Erin Ellison, who's the Senior Director, Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This actually was important for employee accommodation process. We have a pretty rigorous accommodation process for students. However, we were getting feedback that it's not quite the same for faculty. And so we wanted to, first of all, understand what is the process. Then we also did some research collectively. We had several senators do some research on what are some other best practices, what are some benchmarks from other programs. So on the follow-up with that one, Director Ellison and Senator Rosalind sadly are going to meet to look at some of the potential solutions and some of the ideas and recommendations that we made with them. One of the things that we're kind of running around, but I'm not sure if this is going to be able to be done or not, is looking at maybe some type of central funding mechanism for the accommodation process. But that's ongoing. So, and then finally, RFC 228. This issue was raised concerning cheating rings, sometimes in Canvas, where some students having access to the student roster would then email or just contact just the other students to see, hey, let's all share this work, blah, blah, blah. So we were going to follow up with UTO. However, this was also something that we were curious whether this type of issue may be better handled with either student faculty policy committee or digitally enhanced teaching and learning ad hoc committee. So that's kind of something that we want to have those conversations, say, are we the right committee to be taking this on? We thought about the UTO avenue, but there's other things that can be done there as well about how do we maybe change some of the access for the students or do some things to where maybe the faculty themselves can have like kind of a mock student account in there as well, so that you can actually see if such actions are happening. All right. And that's pretty much the main things we're working on right now.
Thank you so much for that report, Chad. And I also want to just note, thank you also for stepping up. Denise Cortez left ASU for industry. So thank you, Chad, for stepping into her place. Finally, Denise Bodman has a quick report from the Curriculum and Academic Programs Committee.
All right, once again, in less than a minute, the committee has had discussions. I love the term robust discussions related to the current general studies process and suggestions, and have expressed some concerns. So we're currently finishing up a memo that we're forwarding to the Provost's office and General Studies Committee. And our intent is to stay part of this entire process as much as possible so that all faculty and students will be adequately represented. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Now we move over to open forum. This is an opportunity for senators to bring up issues, concerns, ask questions, make statements or announcements. I only do so just to remind you also the time that we have before us as well. So this is open forum. You have the opportunity, senators, if you wish to speak or share information.
We have one issue from Senator Wells. not issue. He wants to bring something up.
Okay, Senator Wells.
I have a request of Senate leadership and senators. In CISA, we're anticipating, we don't yet know our summer pay calculator. There's a problem that I've been unable to get the Senate to address related to identifying what a summer class is defined as. So enrollments are vary, and we don't really know what other colleges are using for their summer pay calculators for what constitutes a full class and so forth. So I would appreciate if the Senate leadership could help us gather information about what, whether other colleges already have distributed what their summer pay calculators are and what those are, so we could have that more collectively known, so we could compare that to what we're going to face likely forthcoming soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wells. Anything else from our colleagues?
Yes, we have Christopher Sharp.
Just briefly, I was, for those of you that are at the Watts College, we had a all staff and faculty meeting last week, and I heard that we will, I'm not sure if it's ASU or if it's Watts College, but there's been a decision to continue with the Qualtrics survey package. So I don't know if has been any announcement at the university level. So I am curious about that, and hopefully we can get some clarity on it before I start telling people that it hasn't gone away fully yet. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Senator Sharp. Let me go ahead and follow up with you after the meeting and see if we can find something for you. Thank you.
Okay, we have Senator Vanita Hawthorne James.
I just had a quick question. Is there any movement or update on the Guns on Campus bill? Seems like it hasn't been any movement on it in the legislature since late February 22nd, but if we don't know, that's fine.
I have no update. Does anyone else have any update? We can see if we can find something out. But as the last that I heard, it was stalled in committee. But beyond that, I've heard nothing else, which I take to be good news, if I'm not being naive about that. But let's see if we can find something out.
I can add just a quick thing if that's
Go ahead.
helpful.
Go ahead. Thank you.
So the crossover deadline has passed, or it's this week. So I think it's this week. So if bills don't go from one side to the other this week, they're for the most part dead. My sense is it's probably dead, but in the legislature, nothing's ever dead until they finish.
Indeed.
So cautiously optimistic on that one.
Thank you so much, Senator Wells. So in other words, and you're absolutely right that for now, it is not moving forward. That doesn't mean it won't move forward in another session. We've encountered this issue a number of times. So thank you for your attention to that, Senator Wells, and the rest of our senators as well. Do we have? Okay. As far as I can tell then, that concludes all of our business. Last call. Let's go around to the other campuses just to make sure. Yes, let's go and do that. Downtown Phoenix campus. Do you have any further business for us? Thank you, Johanna. Polytechnic campus. Do you have any further business?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. Tempe campus here.
No business further.
Right. West campus. Do you have any further business for the Senate?
No business from me.
All right. Thank you. Miraculously, colleagues, we are going to finish 2 minutes earlier than I thought we would. Thank you so much for your attention today. Thank you for your service. I now declare this meeting closed.